Mention the hundreds to any cricket fan and you're usually met with a roll of the eyes, a sharp intake of breath, and then mutterings about how it's poison for the game of cricket. But one of the most vocal and enthusiastic proponents of the 100 is our very own Don Topley. So Don joins me to just have a look back at this year's 100 and see how it went, how it's going, and where it will be. Don, good to see you again.
Hello, Darren. Nice to be here.
So the 100, I'll start off. Why does it create so much argument, animosity, and outrage?
Well, I would add jealousy these days. I think we're in year 3, and an enormous amount of people wanted it to go away, and it's not going away. It's actually doing very much what it said on the tin. It's creating interest in the youngsters, some new audience, mums and dads. And if the 100 was to fall by the wayside by design, I'm afraid there will be an awful lot of people, and I mean thousands, who will be disappointed, who will be disillusioned that something that they, not just financially, but emotionally, have attached themselves to, listen, if it goes, the children, the youngsters, and their parents, mum and dads, will be desperately disappointed.
One of the basic arguments I hear, and I heard this on the radio the other day, where they were talking about the 100, and someone said, "I'm not interested. It's all plastic, made-up stuff. I've got no affiliation with these teams. I want to watch my county playing. I don't care about this. It's artificial." But I think that's missing the point, don't you? It wasn't designed to be like that. It's designed to be an occasion, a spectacle, an entertainment, but to attract a new audience that probably would never have heard of Essex or Surrey or Notts or Leicester.
Yeah, to a degree, I think you could be right there. I do have some sympathy, but listen, we have a 6-month busy season. And for me, I do genuinely believe you've got the County Cricket Championship in April, May, June. We've had it in July this year, and then September. We didn't have it in August, but I actually think for 5 months you should be pretty content. And then if in August you can watch the One-Day Cup at the outgrounds, how often, how frequently have they wanted to return to the outgrounds? Well, here we go. We can go to the outgrounds, but in August, because if you don't want to watch the 100, fine, fair enough. And I totally respect that. But you do have the One-Day Cup and the outgrounds. But for 5 months, you can have your 4-day county cricket.
You cover a lot of cricket, both professionally and socially. Do you think, when you go to different formats, when you go to, let's say, a Blast match compared to a county cricket fixture compared to the 100, are there very different audiences at each format?
Yeah, I think there is. I don't want to generalise too much, but there is a degree of crossover, but there's some stubbornness as well. There are still traditional 4-day Red Bull county fans who are not enamoured with T20, and therefore they're not going to be enamoured with the 100 either. And of course, there's a degree of reticent about attending the 100. But I think if a few people did attend the 100, they're very cynical about it. Like when they show the TV and you see children there, they say, well, the cameras are panning on the children. Listen, there are lots of children there. And there also, which is quite important, is there's plenty of ethnic minorities, because it's been well documented over the years that ethnic minorities haven't always been welcome into county championship or county cricket. So we've got to accept that. We know that there is this report out there with 44 recommendations, but I do honestly believe that the 100 is doing what it says on the side of the tin. It's enthusing and encouraging youngsters, and to a degree, a new audience. It's just something a little bit different. And not to knock them, but the Red Bull traditional cricket fans, it is my humble opinion that they might even struggle. I do with the on your phone, downloading the app and getting your tickets. It's a very different experience, even with just the app.
What about scorecards?
Yeah, no, there aren't any scorecards. You have to follow the score either on the screen or indeed, as you do, on your phone.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm very curious about all this. I mean, it's not that long ago, it's 20 years, in fact, that the ECB invented this fantastic thing called the 2020 Cup. And I can remember at the time the similar hostility towards it, bish, bash, bosh, as it was called by one chairman at the time, who was dead against it. But look at this. I mean, it's become, I would probably say, the leading format in global cricket, in terms of money and all the rest of it, and the spawning of all these franchises. It seems to be happening again, but you know, you look 20 years later at what T20 has become. 100. Do you see a tweaking of the format? Because one of the criticisms is this is a format that no one else in the world plays.
Yeah.
It might have more legs or more acceptance if it became a T20 tournament or a format. What would you say to that?
Yeah, look, this week, next week, the ECB are having various meetings with chief executives and indeed the county chairman. So there's going to be a lot going on, lots of discussion. And I do believe there are 5 various options for that particular format stroke game going forward. But yeah, look, for me, the format going back, I thought it was going to be 15 8-ball, which is 120 deliveries, which is the same currency as T20. That was what I was thinking. But actually, at the end of the day, if it was T10, if it was 100 ball, is the format the most important thing that should be discussed? For some red ball fans, it will be. But actually, for me, the format doesn't matter. It's neither here nor there. We were trying to do something different to attract the youth, enthuse the youth, encourage the youth, entice the youth, because playing numbers in amateur cricket is dwindling. We know that membership numbers at county cricket are dwindling. Something's got to happen, because we knew about this in county cricket, but nothing was changing. We were just carrying on just like we used to, and we have done for 20 odd years. But the game is getting smaller, so we've got to excite the next generation. Darren, you've got a wonderful program here on the radio, but with respect, you and me are not the future.
No, not at all. And I think you're right. It's an interesting thing about the format, because when I've been to 100 matches, and I've been going since the thing started, out of curiosity to begin with, but more and more because it's a nice night out with the family. The last one we went to, all of us went, wife, kids, to watch the Oval Invincibles take on London Spirit on a really nice warm evening in South London. And it dawned on me midway through the evening that I wasn't really bothered. Like you just made the point, it's not really about the format. You're there to watch bowler versus bat, and the fielding, which I think across the game has just improved to heights. I mean, you could never have imagined players from, you know, we talk about us being a pair of old gits, but you know, from our era, you couldn't imagine. And you played in some pretty strong teams, but I would dare say there weren't players that you played with that could have done some of the things that we see now, some of the leaping about.
Well, you've gone into an area which is often criticised, because a lot of anti-100 people say, well, the standard or the ability on show is no different to the normal T20. I totally would argue and disagree with that as a fact. So what you're saying about potentially the standard of fielding, yes, I agree. But actually the standard, for instance, this year for me, the standard of opening bowlers on show, people are talking about the white ball swinging a little bit more. Maybe, but also please just understand that the quality of the opening bowlers, we had England opening bowlers, we had some of the world's decent opening bowlers. We were privileged to have so many decent bowlers bowling with that white ball. That probably made the ball swing a little bit more. And it was great to watch. We had a little bit of wet weather early doors in the 100. But once we got through that little wet passage of 10 days or something like that, the wickets started to dry out and we saw some flat wickets. There was some really serious cricket on show. And I find it preposterous that certain groups of people suggest that when you have less players and you've got the better players condensed into 8 teams, the standard's not going to be better. It is. And anyone who's involved in it says it is. The only people who don't are the people that are anti the 100.
Yeah, and that's the purist argument again. And as you said at the top of this discussion, this isn't really aimed at the purists. I'm curious about Richard Clark, the Grumbler, who's got a background in sports marketing and the sort of the commercialization of the sport, and he spent time in America working on various American sports, and I think when you look at them, and I've been to baseball games. I've never been to an American football game. It's too long and it's too much, but I quite like going to baseball because it's not, for me, a million miles away from cricket in terms of, understanding what's going on. But the 100 has definitely hit the target in terms of making the game along those American lines of having a wide appeal. And as you said before, families, people across all backgrounds, communities, and all the rest of it. Because one thing that struck me when I've gone, it's a safe, you're there to have a good time and to be entertained, on and off the field, the music, the flashing lights, all the things that the purists hate, but they are there as a sort of a marketing tool. You look at America and all the way their sports are done. And it struck me that when T20 got going, it put people off because, and everyone I talk to now, people that don't necessarily go to cricket will tell me, oh, I'm going to Chelmsford on Friday night for the T20. Oh, it's always great. It's always a good drink up. Because pretty much every time I go to a T20 these days, it is like going into someone's stag party. Everyone's had far too much to drink, rolling around. No one's really paying attention to the game.
To typify what you've just said, the county one-day, Metro one-day cup county final wasn't particularly well attended this year at Trent Bridge, where Leicestershire are only 28 miles away and Hampshire fought a fantastic game of cricket. But in the T20 Blast finals day at Edgbaston, tickets or applications go on sale, or you can receive the email to say you can try and get tickets the day after last year's final. Now, are you telling me all of those 25,000 at Edgbaston are staunch county cricket fans? No, they're not. They know that potentially it's a fantastic day out with their mates, with a few beers, dressed as Jesus Christ or the Archbishop of Canterbury or a German soldier.
Teletubbies.
You go in your fancy dress. I'm afraid I don't buy that. So you're absolutely right. And I think T20 Finals Day adds and proves what you've just said.
Yeah. I still think that should be as it has been up until this year, the sort of the cup final event of the season. It should really be the one that's brings the curtain down on the season. Have it at the end of September. I gather there's more work next year to be done with the calendar because you've got a World Cup that sits in the middle of the English summer.
We seem to be requesting or analysing that our summer schedule has to be flexible every year, unfortunately, for whatever reason, be it a Football World Cup, be it certain test matches, be it the Caribbean and the USA are having the T20 World Cup in June next year. So the Blast is going to have to move. Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to the schedule. I've got the answer for the schedule, but it won't be a popular one. It would be 10 10 championship matches, and you don't have them necessarily weekly, because that is a problem with the PCA stroke cricketers, that if you have, even if you want it on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then you travel on the Thursday, you have a day off on the Friday, you practice on the Saturday and travel for your next game on the next Saturday. So weekly championship cricket is an issue for me because it is too frequent. And would you believe it, how many injuries do these bowlers get? And I know that county directors of cricket have the issue with weekly championship cricket. End of.
So
but the fans don't. But the fans don't.
So going forward, then, do you think the 100 sat throughout the month of August should stay that way, and there's no reason for it to move, or do you
fundamentally at the moment, it is, for me, look, if we lose the 100, people talk about, well, look, firstly, if you add teams to the 100, and there's a lot of speculation that the Southwest, i.e. Somerset stroke Gloucestershire, and then the Northeast with Durham, if you add teams to it, there is a consequence, and the consequence is the event becomes longer. The profile of the 100 is absolutely brilliant, and the marketing people have got behind that brilliantly, because yes, they've thrown some money at it, but it's a game a night. So that the media, like television, local news or whatever, written reports or whatever, there's one game a night. On a Friday night with the T20 Blast, there's 9. How do you get the profile the same for 9 T20 Blast matches as opposed to 100, which has got free to air or live television? Absolutely brilliant. And everybody's watching it. And to be honest, I'm going to ask you, I enjoyed the IPL. I enjoyed the SA20 when in England we could watch an evening game of cricket, as we do with 100. When the 100 finished, all right, congratulations to the men and ladies, women's winners. But for me, I was lost without a game in the evening. And I tell you what, like we did, Darren, with the John Player League on a Sunday afternoon at 2:00, when we would watch it on BBC Two with Peter West and all the old commentators, we set the diary, we would be there. And would you believe it? Lots of the people who like the 100 are glued in the evening for the game. And that's what, it's why it's so successful.
Blimey, John Player League. Memories for me are, having just consumed a great big Sunday lunch, was sitting on the sofa and listening to John Arlott gently sending me to sleep.
Well, at the time, I mean, it was, back in the 60s and 70s when we had one-day cricket that evolved. And do you remember there were lots of anti-people at the time? I remember my father, no longer with us, but he was, he enjoyed proper cricket, the old-fashioned long, well, in those days it was 3-day cricket, where they would play 2 3-day crickets in a week. And then the Sunday League came in, and he always said running the ball down to third man was a terrible shot. That's an out shot. But most people did in those days. So the game continues and has to develop and progress. And rightly or wrongly, this is part of it.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. We're old enough to have seen evolutions come. This is probably about the third evolution of the game in our lifetime. So what I like about it, just go back to your earlier point, what I do like about all of this, whether it's the 100, whether it's the IPL, I think the IPL and also the Big Bash are, for me, guilty of being too bloated. They're too long. Where I thought the Blast here was good this year was the fact that it all took place over a month. The 100 took place over a month. So you're kind of like, you're invested in it and you can follow it and you don't get bored. How many times every year I sit down, the IPL's starting, and I'll watch the first few games. Then all of a sudden you get distracted, or you can't, you get lost, and it's still, you come back a month later and it's still going on.
It runs for 2 months. I mean, look, I can't deny what you've just said there is probably quite true. But the other side of that coin is, And whilst maybe the ECB missed the boat years ago, 20 odd years ago with the T20, and it's gone on and been taken on by everyone else, what we must remember is that we used to have, I don't want to say it's a degree of arrogance, but we've had the summer, April to September, all on our own for however, 150 years? We're the only country that sort of seems to play cricket in that part of the year in the Northern Hemisphere. And only these days are we seeing, well, the IPL has touched in March and April, a little bit in May, and you've got the CPL, and now we've got the MLC in America. Look, we've been very fortunate, and we used to do what we wanted to do for 6 months alone. And our county cricket was fantastic back in the day. It's a very different animal today, and we don't have it on our own. And I think it's only fair that all these other cricketing nations, and dare I say, you talk about flexibility, isn't it? We're going to have cricket in the country, in the Olympics, in one summer coming up. Was it 27, 28 or something like that? We've got the Olympics. So every season we have to remain flexible. But I just say to you that every country now wants a piece of the pie. America, the Caribbean Premier League. You know, we're seeing Sri Lanka, we're seeing the ILC in Dubai or Abu Dhabi. There's the T10. They all want a piece of the pie. Who are we to deny them that opportunity to develop their own cricket in their domestic season? If it overlaps with us, we have competition, and we need to appreciate and understand that.
Yeah, and I read a piece today about the ECB offering big money contracts to England players to stop the temptation of them drifting off to. But I think that's looking through the telescope from the wrong end, because one, the new players in the game, the US and the Saudis have got far deeper pockets than the ECB would ever have. So it's probably not worth even engaging in that. And it's probably worth just engaging. That was the mistake that we made with the IPL when that started 20 years ago. Just if players want to go, let them go, because it opens up opportunities. We've got quite a big talent pool, as we've seen over this summer, through the One Day Cup, through the Blast.
Yes.
Give those youngsters, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but peripheral players, the chance. If other players want to go off and play in India or the Saudis or whatever else, let them go. Rearrange the county contracts, have it more on a pay-as-you-play, whatever. But you've got to be sort of open-minded with all this, and it's all happening, whether we like it or not, traditionalists, purists, whatever. And for me, the real eyebrow-raising thing that I noticed this season was a certain editor of the Cricketer magazine, Mr. Hugh Turbeville, good friend of both of ours, who went along to a 100 game with his children and was quite prepared to sit there grumpy, arms folded and tutty.
Oh, Hugh? Never.
But he didn't, did he?
No.
He didn't.
I think he was quite surprised how his children, or I mean, they're not young children,
no,
but how inspired they were with the 100. There was a degree of wow factor.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Right. I'm going to wrap it up there. Always lovely to chat, and I'm sure we'll be back on the airways very, very soon. Lots to talk about through the winter. And I've got to say good luck in India with Reece being selected for the World Cup. I gather you're off for 6 weeks. Is that right?
Yes, I'm partial to the odd curry, but it's going to be breakfast, lunch, and supper.
I know.
And I'm going to be out there for watching England's games, and I really hope. Just going back quickly before I get on the plane out to India, I just want to say that cricket, it's not all doom and gloom. The economy is challenging at the moment. The TV deal we've currently got has been pretty good. Whether we get another good one like this, there are many challenges. But actually, I'm going to say and put my neck on the block here by saying cricket is also in a very exciting place. It's challenging, but it's also exciting. And I think we all need to appreciate that.
Thanks for listening to 98 Not Out, the cricket podcast. Please subscribe to the show in your podcast app to make sure you see the new episode each week as it appears in your feed. And if you enjoy the show, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts to help us introduce the show to even more people. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next episode.